Good day, all. RobotnikHolmes here. Yeah, I know. What an odd place to start off a video. Why am I all cooped up in this dark room, you might be asking? Well, I'll tell you. I didn't expect my cameraman to just straight up turn on me, like in complete rage and bloodlust. I've tried calling everyone. Omo Chow went missing some time ago, and he's probably buggered off God knows where. I'm just at wit's end here. Unless I report directly to my boss, I have literally nobody else to turn to. No one at all. Wait. I guess there is someone.
Thank you for visiting Unit 105. We take pride in our beverages here at the Egg Saloon. Oh, sorry, just a moment. Let me take this call real quick. Hello, Egg Saloon. Will these drinks be for here to go?
Hi, Flair. It's me, Holmes.
Wait, Holmes? Holy crap, dude. It's been ages since we last talked. I don't think we've chatted since you changed shop at Crimson Carnival.
Yeah, I know. Pardon me, but why do you talk in the royal we? Last I checked, you weren't of royalty. Oh, wait, it's your heads. Your two heads, yeah. Tell your other head I said hi.
So, did you call us just to be a doofus?
No? Oh, yeah, listen, we can catch up later. At the Mo, I'm kind of in a predicament. The robot the boss dude gave me has gone haywire, and I'm currently in hiding. Nobody else is available to help. Is there a chance you could come in here and kick his ass for me? That would be just grand.
Now hold up. You have been treating Hexbox well, right?
Well, that's such a strong accusation. I've certainly not been a bad boss at all. Okay, maybe a little bit. Oh, cripes. This is all my fault, isn't it?
Listen, man, I've got a bar to run. You are very most likely the cause of that whole situation, so listen here. Hexbox was from the 04 line, and they had a major problem of being weak in the joints, so if possible, you're going to need to reach the shaft holding the torso. That should temporarily disable the bot. Now, do you think you can do that?
Yes. Thanks, Flair. Honestly, I'd be pretty lost otherwise. You're a big help.
Yeah, and you're an idiot, but I believe in you anyway, okay? Now go figure it out, and don't mistreat him anymore, alright?
Yeah, sure thing. I shall notify you after the fact. Anyway, folks, that Hexbot stuff can wait. For now, let's get into a mini-series starring a guy who also went out on his own. So, Miles Tails Prower. We all know who he is. Sonic's kid sidekick, his number one little buddy who occasionally tags along on all his adventures. Also arguably the cutest among the entire cast, don't ask me. This two-tailed fox has always been a favourite among fans of the games, but right now, I'm talking about how he was portrayed in 1996. Sure, the games had him be Sonic the Hedgehog's constant follower, but in other media, I don't think they really branched out past that one trait. In the cartoons during the mid-90s, the kid was a trifle more naive, portrayed as constantly getting into trouble and thinking way over his little head when it came to helping out the other good guys. There, he didn't even have the capacity to keep up with the blue blur, nor did he have any of his inventing prowess or even his cool plane, the Tornado. And sadly, that downgrade was present even in the Archie Comics publications. But, while he was still portrayed as a dumb kid and practically nothing else, he did have his moments where he would question his place on the team. I've brought this up in previous videos, but I truly feel that writer Mike Gallagher had really started to make Tails more than the usual kid stereotype. The dude wants to prove to the others just how good he can be on his own. And so, it would seem like perfect casting for this one writer to put together an entire miniseries starring our favourite fox. I think that this one was remembered a tad more than the Sally miniseries, and that's probably because this one, no offence to Ken Penders, actually had a memorable premise and theme going on. It takes place within some kind of Australian continent, with a whole new team of freedom fighters. Well, whoop-de-doo, everyone and their grandmothers have introduced a new team, and they're always less memorable than the one we already know. But will this miniseries be a tad more interesting to read? At least when compared to Ken Pender's Princess Sally miniseries? Will Tails' characterization be fleshed out further than before, now that he's the main focus? Will Mike Gallagher continue to make more puns to take advantage of this change in setting? Bugger it all, let's give it a go. If I've survived this long reading more pop culture references than I have in the morning papers, I think I'll be good. So, buckle up ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the 3 issues of the Tails miniseries. Starting off, let's take a look at the first cover. If this is supposed to clue the reader in on just what they're getting into, I'm afraid it has me totally lost. I think the colorist should have made the shading cleaner and less messy looking if you ask me. But what's up with the vaguely orange boy? Last time we saw the two-tailed kid, he was trekking into the ocean to stop one of Dr. Robotnik's plans. And I guess that escalates into him abandoning his sub to ride on a freaking whale? We've also got a pair of ominous looking robot dudes. The villain's typical goons at this point. One of them appears to be Octobot, a minor villain slash hindrance from a previous story. And there's also this weird green guy here too. I guess we'll have to get into the issue itself to find out who this is. Whoa, what the hell is all this? We start off with some Imagine spots, where Tails gives himself a fake dramatic backstory. It's more crudely drawn than the rest of the issue, but apparently Tails likes to fantasize about himself having a secret identity and being more of a superhero than he supposedly already is. And I mean that literally here. I guess this can go hand in hand with the plot here, as in Southern Crossover Part 1, Tails is actually trying to hide his secret solo mission from Princess Sally here. Good to see he still despises being underestimated and looked down upon by the others. He looks freaking livid here. So yeah, I guess it's time for his adventure in this miniseries. Good golly, he was one rebellious fox under this writer's pen, huh? It's like Tails finally hit puberty. Or maybe he's still getting over losing a robot version of that female fox that he had to abandon for the sake of dramaticness. Comics are complicated. Meanwhile, in the skies above Robotropolis, the villain himself is preparing a blimp full of supplies. This also seems to be for his plans in the Southern Hemisphere that Tails is planning on stopping. So it looks like the kid's got his work cut out for him. And Dr. Robotnik also uses this time to threaten his forces by doing the whole punishing routine, which is probably a staple at this point, as well as making a reference to Darth Vader. He also uses his brute strength to crush a SWATbot into a metal cube, so I guess you know that he means business. Why he doesn't use this strength to his advantage to kill his nemesis is beyond me though. So, while Tails is at sea, he spots the Robotnik blimp. Funny how it's meant to be under an invisibility cloak, unless looked at from below, like any old person with actual eyes could totally do. Tails goes to stop this cargo from reaching its destination of Down Under, but he is zapped by a flying bot, and now we have his first test of independence. Tails usually can't fight a single SWAT bot, let alone 2 flying ones with stun guns. How does he expect to fight them single-handedly? Well, by doing that apparently. Yeah, Tails is apparently an airbender now. But while he was able to defeat the SWAT bots, he definitely wasn't aware of Octobot returning and ambushing him from within his sub. Golly, this guy's really out for blood. Tails is literally helpless in this situation. In their last encounter, Octobot was easily dealt with thanks to the submarine's drill, and here he's returning the favour by strangling Tails and slowly drowning him to death. Holy frickin' crap, won't someone help this poor lad? As abruptly as ever, we cut to Dr. Robotnik talking to his forces through his monitor. His transmission reaches all the way to Down Under, and he speaks to an ominous green fella. And here we meet the main villain of the miniseries, Dr. Robotnik's sub-boss ruling over the Mobian Australian continent, Crocbot. Yeah, I'm noticing a running theme here. He's in charge of operations here, and is also polluting the environment for the sake of it. He also speaks in an Australian accent, because of course he does. However, the Croc guy apparently has plans of his own, as he sends out his answer to the SWAT bots, the winged dingoes, and also plans on using the supplies to become all-powerful, and even reprogram the villain's robots to work for him instead. They will even get little Australian hats too, apparently. This guy is meant to be seen as more evil than the main villain, but I don't think I can take it that seriously. Speaking of not taking things seriously, Tails is currently dying to death, but is saved in the nick of time thanks to the 40 Fathoms Freedom Fighters. That's a lot of Fs. And they are regular looking sea creatures. Alright then. Octobot looks to be on the winning side, despite their strength in numbers, but something really big appears and is shown to crush him to death, leaving him damaged and singing a silly tune. God damn. The fish freedom fighters may have rescued our two-tailed fox, but they were not able to undo the damage Octobot did to the Sea Fox sub. So because of that, they decide to give the kid a lift. You think that's an island? Nope, it's apparently a whale, named Fluke to be exact, who's also a member of the 4Fs. Apparently he's been Tails' recovery spot after they saved him from drowning. They even offer Tails a lift to his destination of Down Under, and the issue ends with Tails riding a whale, and somehow not falling off. Hey, if he can stand his ground on a plane, he can do it on the largest sea creature imaginable, I guess. Alright, let's make this quick, lest this video be another 30-minute long behemoth. The writing of Mike Gallagher was still silly and full of comedy, both in the script and how the characters made puns all the time. I think he might have been saving his A-game for later though, because in this issue, the jokes were either lacking or were mostly non-existent. At the very least, for me, it was a breath of fresh air. As for characters, Tails was written to be a typical powerful protagonist, much like how Sonic was at this point. His job was to go from point A to point B, and rightfully so, being a kid meant that he didn't win a lot of fights against Robotnik's forces. But he still did those over-the-top illogical moves that the Hedgehog liked to pull off. The story otherwise didn't do much else with him, but it was nice seeing him do what he did best, flying around with his impossible tails. The 40 Fathoms Freedom Fighters were also pretty plain, except for maybe the build-up and execution of Fluke the Whale. I felt they were just created to add to the rising number of freedom fighter groups. They were just really competent sea creatures, but one of them's a freaking clam, and saying that this guy was a member of a heroic team will never not baffle me. On the villain's side, Mike Gallagher always wrote Dr. Robotnik as so cartoonishly cruel. I still very much prefer him when his goofiness and his ominous presence was more balanced out, you know? Overall, not a very great start. I certainly hope this setup is worth it, because they sacrificed a lot just to make this issue a springboard for future plot details. But what can you expect when they're revolving a story around this version of Sonic's sidekick? Because of its blandness, I'll have to give the story a 2. Some of the visuals were okay. There were some bits of quirkiness every now and then, as was the tradition of Dave Manica's penciler. The characters were drawn fine. Every once in a while he would draw a background that wasn't just a flat colour. We get to see other, newer locales, even if it mainly consisted of a bit of Down Under and a frick ton of oceans. I mean, they were cool oceans, like, I really liked the underwater bits with all this action going on, but I think the best thing about this issue was the tussle between Tails and Octobot. It was way more intense, and actually had me startled for a second for the character's safety, as all good comic books should do. In terms of character design, I felt the 4Fs could have been better designed. They're meant to be an official team, and yet they just look like typical animals. Give them bandanas, or ribbon. Hell, at least make them amphro to match with the rest of the cast. I know this was meant to be a comic aimed at children, and they probably would have wanted them to look simple and easy to draw, but the art and writing could have come to a compromise. Also, I can confirm that the first page was drawn by writer Gallagher. You can tell because the style matches his drawing that we saw in a previous video. Well, art and character designs were mixed, which means the score for the visuals gets an average 3. Okay, total score for the first of these 3 issues gets a 5 out of 10. Quite a dull start, but let's see where it goes from here. It's time to see Tails finally enter Down Under. The cover for issue number 2 has Tails meeting some threatening looking doggos. Seems like this version of Australia isn't going to be very welcoming. Speaking of which, I think I spot new freedom fighters on the horizon. I figured one of them would be a fricking kangaroo. I knew that was coming. Yeah, I can read you like a book, Gallagher. We start off with... oh my god. Is every issue of this miniseries starting with a gross-looking page supposedly created from Tails' imagination? Kindly skip that, please. At the very least, we finally get to see the names of the other fish freedom fighters. Can't believe they forgot to give them names earlier on, but really, that's a running theme throughout the entirety of this comic series, so please bear with me. In Southern Crossover Part 2, Tails finally makes it to the main setting of the miniseries, Down Under. Yeah, Down Under. What, you thought it was just my accent? No, it's literally spelt like that. Yeah, that's right, Tails. Just go flying straight into the continent. It's not like you'll be detected by anything. So Crockbot notices a blip on his radar, and while he blabs to his boss that no kid psychic is gonna kick his ass, he reaffirms his loyalty to the main villain. Yeah, Crockbot, we know you wish to betray him. You don't have to be so obvious about it. Tails is about to be attacked from all angles by these mechanical wing dingoes, so Crockbot assures his boss. However, as much as Tails fights them off and does his best to prove to himself that he can do it all alone without any backup, like seriously, he actually kicks good ass here, he ends up getting his tail bitten, thus making the kid lose altitude and plummet to the ground. Jesus, poor Tails. However, kind of retreading immediate old ground here, the two-tailed kid has his butt saved by a team of hero dudes, this one being the Down Under Freedom Fighters. They certainly know the ways of kicking metal arse, but golly, what an odd group of clothed animals. Alright, introduction time. They consist of Wombat Stew, the local rough powerhouse, Guru Emu, a hippie whose philosophy isn't really in line with freedom fighting, but sure, I'll accept it. A Barbie Koala, the kick-ass girl of the team who can literally cut robots in half. That's metal as frick. A Duck Bill Platypus, whose design looks like something I dropped in the toilet after stuffing my face full of pizza. And finally their leader, Walt Wallaby, a typical kangaroo dude who just happens to have a pouch. Yeah, funny that. I guess on Mobius, the male kangaroos can have pouches to hold their babies in as well. And yeah, Tails is saved. Thank God there's all these freedom fighter groups here to save Tails' arse all the time. However, the gang wasn't expecting one of the winged dingoes to ambush them, I guess. And with Tails safely stored in the man pouch of the kangaroo dude, the Down Under freedom fighters take off to rescue their kidnapped friend. Tails is also going to be brought to the Old Man. I wonder who that is. Meanwhile, Crockbot has a nasty surprise when he sees his minions return to him in a state of poor shape, and he tries to hide this weakness from his boss. Dr. Robotnik's just constantly video calling him apparently. These blimp supplies must be really important. Oh well, away with you! So Crockbot isn't too happy with the local freedom fighters wrecking his crap, which is apparently a regular occurrence, but apparently things are also swinging in his favour as he finally caught one of the ragtag misfits. And now the Croc robot can continue operations and collect Dr. Robotnik's vast amount of supplies. But first, he realises with evil glee that the other freedom fighters are close by. Yeah, he's not cowering in fear. Quite the opposite, actually. And dear God, why does Crockbot's fortresses look like that? Are they located on 42 West Wallaby Way, Sydney? Actually, considering this comic's lore, that very well might be a possibility. So yeah, the Australian Mobians are off to rescue their friend, who is no doubt being tortured in the worst way possible. Just you watch, he's probably just torturing him with didgeridoos or something. Hey, I wouldn't put it past this writer. Elsewhere, in the crater, Tails finds that he has just been left there, lying on a stone slab. At least Walt was kind enough to bandage his wounds, but the fox soon hears the sounds of chanting and decides to go check that out. Surprise! It's the ancient walkers again. They're just standing around like they're in a freaking museum. But they are not alone, as there is apparently an old echidna dude here, who speaks like he hasn't drunken anything liquid since the First Age. Also, what the hell, Tails? Not all echidnas look the same. Clearly, it's an entirely new character. Yep, meet Athair, relative of Knuckles, and a cryptic old guy who talks entirely in mystic jargon. He speaks of Tails being the supposed chosen one, and yeah, that's about it for this issue. Yep, it just ends there. I will happily praise this issue for getting us to finally arrive at Tails' destination. Down Under is a pretty neat, different looking setting, with new characters that make a nice change from the usual. However, it's not like they were written any better than the Knothole Freedom Fighters. These heroes were still kind of one note, or in the case of some, no note. They also all introduced themselves by calling each other by their names in casual fighting conversations. It was pretty shoehorned in, but it fits with the rest of the issue in terms of weirdness. I mean, who talks about their friends to their friends like this? Oh yeah, Omo-chow, don't you agree that it's great that Auntie is on the crew? And Hexbot, my loyal companion. I'm all alone. Nah, I'll be frank, I still kinda liked the Down Under guys, especially when compared to those sodding fish. I think Hippie Emu and Barbie were my faves. It was also nice that we got hints of how they fought Crocbot on a regular basis. It's understandable that the Down Under freedom fighters had more trouble dealing with the local bad guy, because with the freedom fighters we know, they had Knothole and the Great Forest to hide in. You know, there's so many trees to hide in that Dr. Robotnik just got lost easily. Here, it's mostly desert. There isn't really any indication that the Down Under guys have ever had a hidden base to hide in, but I'll assume that they do, considering that they've survived for this long. The story moved much smoother here compared to the first issue, and it still gave Tails a lot of focus, but I do think that the Down Under guys kinda overshadowed his presence, and plus they saved his butt in the first third. That bit was kind of lame, as it was essentially the same story beat from the last issue. Also, Jesus Christ, what is it with these mini-series and having their main star be unconscious throughout most of it? I'll commend Gallagher for focusing on story more than having a billion puns, though trust me, there's still a lot of those here. I guess I mostly just blanked them out. But regardless, the story and its progression is definitely a step up. I guess I'll give it one number higher of a score. So, a 3. The art was the huge. Dave Manek drew some good slapstick, and we saw Tails get into more action against other airborne enemies. And Mike Gallagher continues to give me a frighten. I will say that Crocbot is a really nicely designed character. He looks so cool and threatening, even with Manek's simplistic style. Other than that, I'll say the visuals were passable. And you bet your butt I'm giving out a lot of 3s, because the score for this one is also going to be a 3. That leaves issue number 2 of the Tails miniseries with a slightly more promising score of 6 out of 10. Looks like things are looking up, but really, that only leaves the last issue with more to live up to. Will the finale of this weird and strange miniseries end on a high note? Let's look. The cover for issue number 3 has Tails in quite a predicament, being strangled by Crocbot while Ether watches from below with his candy-looking shaman dreadlocks. I just want to eat them off of his head. Beats me where the hell that tank will be in all this, but also, holy crap, what's with Crocbot's design here? Is this what he's supposed to look like without the comedy-style filter over these stories? Why does he look and act so doofy in the issues proper? There's a bit of a style mismatch going on here. Oh god. If there's anything as horrifying to look at as old men echidnas, it's seeing Mike Gallagher draw one of them. So yeah, to continue off from last issue, with help from Tails breaking the fourth wall and reading ahead, Ether is here to give Tails, or Double Tail as he calls him, a hefty exposition dump. Funny, this stuff is all about ancient echidnas and how Angel Island came to be. It's a lot of panels depicting the punishment for echidna kind's hubris and how their technological civilization came to be on a floating rock. But evidently, Tails is not here for exposition and would rather get on with the story and fight the big bad guy. But the ancient walkers, who turn out not to be dried wax figures, suddenly grab him. I'm so sorry, Tails. You're gonna have to live with this exposition whether you like to or not. It's like Gallagher suddenly became Penders or something. What's with all this pandering to echidna history? Anyway, I bet you're wondering just what the main villain Crocbot is up to. Wouldn't you know, he's fitting himself into more of that dumb Australian stereotype. Yep, he's got a little hat now. He's still planning on taking all the supplies from the blimp, and he's also planning on dealing with the other Down Under freedom fighters, using his latest invention, the CD-ROM RAM. What? Obsolete computer references aside, this machine seems to be a success, easily defeating the heroes with its ramming horns alone. God, wouldn't it be great if there was a two-tailed fox here to help them out? Meanwhile, Tails is being subjected to more forced history lessons, and he sees visions on how the dinosaurs evolved and how their lives changed when the Chaos Emeralds fell from the sky after an ice age or something. The visions also tell Tails The visions also relay to Tails on how the Chaos Emeralds were worshipped, and also used by evil echidnas who harnessed it with technology. A chosen one is prophesied to gather together all the Chaos Emeralds and their infinite power, and bring about something called the Great Harmony. And by God, Tails is as messed up as I am after reading all that. Apparently, that was the ancient walkers giving Tails all that info, all while they just stood there and said nothing. But whoa, hello! The now fully healed Tails catches a falling Barbie koala, apparently completely by chance after she was butted away by the Ram robot. I'm not kidding, that's what this panel tells us. At least it gives Tails a time to shine finally, but first he wishes to say his goodbyes to Old Man Exposition. But it turns out that he and the ancient walkers have disappeared, as if they were never there to waste my time. Meanwhile, the Down Under freedom fighters are having their butts handed to them by the robotic ram. All the while the blimp of supplies finally makes it towards Crocbot's lair. Gosh, you guys were powerful enough to kill medium-sized robots with your bare hands earlier. What the hell happened? Oh wait, this looks good. Walt Wallaby has a boomerang in his pouch. So, that destroys the ram thing, but that's not going to stop the delicate procedure of Crocbot getting the super powerful supplies from Robotnik's blimp. He sure is adamant in getting that, and he even puts electric charges in his hook to, I guess, reprogram all the SWAT bots on board to fall under his control. However, Tails and Barbie are here to muck up his day with their flying powers and high heel kicks, respectively. Crocbot's procedure is interrupted, and the blimp full of deadly resources detonates in a fiery explosion of complete and utter wreckage. All the humanity indeed. However, Crocbot's not done yet, as when Wombat Stew is saved, the villain just goes and decks Tails in the head and knocks him out cold. God damn, every issue. The poor kid gets both outshined and out-conscious. So the Croc dude has a backup plan in the form of a nuclear-powered tank thing. It does look pretty doofy and not tank-like at all, but we're already nearing the end, so let's just get this story done and over with. Crocbot is on the brink of escaping, leaving the Down Under freedom fighters in the dust, but the members of the team aren't quite out of ideas. The otherwise peaceful Guru Emu gets an idea to have Tails airlift him after the escaping Crocbots, and have one of the kangaroo dude's explosive boomerangs to take him out. They go out and do this, and it's successful, causing the tank to lose control, and it spirals its way towards a cliff and drops off. A nuclear cloud is the only thing we see following Crocbot's supposed death. Back with Tails, while the others are open to him joining their team and getting a new kid sidekick, he decides that it is best he return to Knothole. He rather suddenly realises that his friends truly did have his best interests at heart, despite how much they fussed over him. It was only now after this journey that Tails finally understood them, I suppose. But while he laments that he cannot go back without his sub, lo and behold, it's right there. The 4Fs had been hard at work and went and fixed it for him. That was certainly nice of the protectors of the entire ocean. You guys must not be very busy. The issue ends with Tails giving a heartfelt goodbye to the Down Under guys, who, let's be honest, hadn't really interacted with him that much in the first place. And Tails is off on his journey back to Knothole. The editor's blurb also tells the reader to send in their letters if they want these spotlight-stealing squads to return in a later story. That's practically a staple of writer Gallagher whenever he decides to make a new character. So that was the explosive finale of the Tales miniseries. It didn't put much focus on the setting of Down Under, nor really give much of the characters any more personality than the basics that we have already seen. And still, Tails was outshined by the heroism displayed by the Down Under guys. It's kind of a shame, really. I'm glad that Tails had more of a part to play in the action this time around. Sure, he was knocked out again and forced to listen to narration for like the first third, but it was nice seeing him fly about and be awesome, almost like he was in his Imagine spots. The villain Crocbot didn't do much except for what you expect Robotnik to do. I don't know if it was intentional or not, or just that Mike Gallagher literally can't write any villain other than a loud doofus who just happens to have deadly polluting technology. I kept getting distracted by his dialogue constantly indicating that he would betray his boss. Apparently the writer has no sense of build-up when it comes to his villain's motivations. Wouldn't it have made more sense to wait until this issue to establish that Crocbot is a traitor? It would have added a much needed twist in this largely predictable formula. The huge exposition dump involving the history of Mobius and Echidna Kind was quite a mouthful. But I did like the hint that the Great Crater in Down Under, in actuality, was the hole left by Angel Island when it lifted off in this continuity. But as much as I can appreciate this issue delving into Mobius's canonical past, it was, once again, a detriment to the pacing of the story, and just felt really shoehorned in. This issue was a little bit of a letdown, but still an okay read, I guess. I'll just give the story and characters a below average 2. Malik did good with the illustrations and the silly loose style of it all. I was never bored throughout this first issue, probably from the visuals alone. Although sometimes the panels would be a little messy and cluttered, to the point where I wasn't sure what the direction was. But otherwise, I can't complain. I'll give the art the same score as the others, a 3. Final score for issue number 3 of the Tales miniseries gets a 5 out of 10. Yep, the same score as the first one. I suppose because, for me, the enjoyment of this miniseries peaked only in the middle issue. The first had a story that only existed for build-up, and the third kept being sidetracked by unimportant plot details. Tales, or his frustration on being a kid psychic, wasn't touched upon as much as I would have liked, and the pacing just felt super rushed. But really, the entire miniseries was dumb, but not a bad read. I did enjoy its settings and jokes, and seeing Tails using his flying powers to fight and help the other characters was destined to be a good sight. It's just a shame that the way the characters were written and the pacing kept putting me out of it. Think of this miniseries like a roller coaster, only it's shoddy and you kind of question why you even got on it. It's a fun, entertaining ride with a lot of problems. And like how Tails had to come to terms with returning to his friends, so must I in these circumstances. I can't hide in here from Hexbot forever.